Welcome back to the Cheap Heat Productions podcast. Okay, welcome back to the show. I've got a great guest on the show today, a man of many talents, actor, producer, musician, comedian. He's done it all. Mr. Dave Sheridan, how are you, man?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. This is the cheap heat. All right.
This is the Cheap Heat all the way from Ireland. Have you ever been
Yeah,
over here?
I have not. I have not. We just did a show in the UK in Manchester. It was called For the Love of Horror.
Yeah, I've
Um,
heard of it, yeah.
I spent a week there, but I haven't gotten over to the other side there in Ireland. So I definitely got to do it at some point. That's for sure.
Have you got any Irish ancestors? Every time I'm talking to someone from the States, they always have a little connection with Ireland. Or
Yeah,
else, or else they lie about it. I don't know.
my name's David Christopher Sheridan. That's pretty Irish. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, yeah. I'm all Irish.
yeah.
100%. Yep.
100% Irish.
I think it's like the County Mead. County
Oh, really?
Mead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where
I
we're
thought
from.
you were, I thought you were only joking there for a minute.
No, Sheridan. It's a big Irish name. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. One of our famous producers, Jim Sheridan. I don't know if you heard of him. He's
Yep.
Irish.
I know him. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And his daughter. Yeah.
yeah. And right, so if we rewind it back to the start, how did you decide from a young age that you wanted to get involved in, like, say, the movie and TV industry?
Um, I really had no choice because I couldn't do anything else. I'm not a very good reader, not a very good writer. So I'm a clown, man. I'm the class clown. I was the class clown, uh, and then I remember when I was in kindergarten. I don't know what if you guys have kindergarten where
Yeah,
you're at. It's before first grade, and there's like playtime. Kindergarten's
yeah,
all playtime, first of all, but and I'm a little older than you, so one of the things we were doing, we had these Clorox bleach bottles that they cleaned them out and they cut them and they made astronaut helmets out of them. And this was like 1973. And so the space program, it was only 4 years before they landed on the moon the first time. So we were in the height of the space program. And so space was big.
yeah.
And we were playing astronauts. And the teacher couldn't get me to stop, and I was like pretending to float around and do all this stupid stuff, and she was getting mad and yelling at me, and they I was really into astronauts, man. Tang, I don't know if you know anything about Tang. It was like
Tang,
the
no.
Tang is a powdered orange drink that they sold back in the 70s, which like it's what the astronauts drank. So
Yeah,
I only drank Tang, and now I only eat Tang. I'm kidding. Well, hold on, that's fun. So, but basically, you fill out a thing. It's always like you're drawing a picture of what you want to be, and most people are like, "I want to be a cop. I want to be a fireman." I was like, "I want to be an astronaut." And I remember the kindergarten teacher being like, "I'm going to break it to you. You're not astronaut material. You're never going to be an astronaut." And I was like, "Oh." And she goes, "But you seem like you're a good actor, and if you become an actor, you can play an astronaut someday that way." And I was like, "Then I'm going to be an actor." So that's really what I just listened to her and said, all right, I'm going to be an actor. And I did a movie called White Space. I think it came out in 2000. You'd have to check the IMDb because I'm not sure when it came out. 2017, 2018, something like that. It's a good movie. It's like The Shining and Moby Dick set in space. Um, but I was an astronaut, obviously, but I got to get the whole white suit on and go out and do a spacewalk because I had to fix something on the thing. So they had me, propelled with a green screen and there's multiple takes, and you're just sitting there in the suit, for a long
Yeah.
time, and it kind of hurts. But I was like, that's when it hit me. I'm like, I did it. I did it. I became the astronaut. Like, so she's long dead by then, but I could have went back and, I'm going to dig her corpse up probably and show her the movie. Well, watch the movie with her and say, look, I made it. Thank you very much. So,
While we're talking about corpses, there's a massive story here, and this is completely off topic in Ireland at the moment. Last week in Ireland, two guys brought a dead man to a local post office to collect his pension, pretending that he
yeah,
was alive. Did you hear about that?
I didn't, but they made a movie very similar to that, and I
Yeah,
thought it took place in Ireland about the when the guy, it was Ned something or whatever it was. He won the lottery ticket in the little town. Didn't
yeah.
want to tell anyone he was dead so they could get the ticket. You know what I mean? But that's
This,
it. We sounds like Weekend at Bernie's, huh? Weekend at Bernie's, the post
yes,
office visit. So
yeah, but this actually happened last week in Ireland. It's a massive story. Like these two
what?
guys
Why
brought
wouldn't they just pretend to be the guy? I don't know why they need to have the dead guy because they knew him or something. They would know who he is.
the guys were in their 30s, and the man who passed away was near in his 70s. So one of them went in to try collect his money early in the day,
There you
and
go. So
it
they
didn't
did
work.
try.
Yeah, they
Right.
did try, but then they're like, no, you're going to need to bring him. So they brought him. The people that worked there realized the guy was dead. They
Yeah.
dropped the body and ran. Fucking
Yeah.
crazy stuff.
So they didn't get the check either, huh? You say?
They
How are
didn't
they
get the
going?
check.
How are they going to cash the check? They'd have to then go to. Then they'd have to go cash the check and coast. You know what I mean? So then the
Yeah,
dead guy had to keep going there. And so, how long was he dead? Does anyone know? Like, was he
I
recently dead? They didn't
yeah,
dig him up, right?
no, no. I think he was dead 2 days. And the funny thing about this is one of the guys was related to him. It was his
Yeah.
uncle,
Yeah.
and he was left dead seemingly for 2 days, and they took him. They took his fucking body to try get the money, man. Crazy stuff.
God, if he died, if he just held in there for 2 days, he'd get the check.
Yeah.
You know.
Was your first big role in a totally off-topic point in Saturday Night Live, and what did you do there? Because that's a
Okay.
massive
Yeah.
thing.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and that was also something. Again, it was about kindergarten. That was 1975. SNL started, and so I was 6 years old. I was probably first grade, and I loved that show. But over here it was on at 11:30 at night on a
Yeah,
Saturday night. But my dad watched it, and I would pretend to be asleep. I would just pretend to be asleep and on the couch and watch with one eye, and I thought it was hilarious. But I also knew I couldn't laugh because he would know I'm awake. And there was some like sexual innuendos and stuff like that
mhm,
I got, but I couldn't laugh at the stuff. And then if they caught me and they sent me to sleep, the way my staircase went, there was one little last corner of the staircase, and I could see the TV, and I would sit and watch it. Um, so I always wanted. That was again a childhood dream of like I want to be on that show. And I'll tell you what, if they didn't have Mr. Bill, those first original seasons had this little claymation character called Mr. Bill, which was like kind
yeah,
of a spoof of Gumby. And I loved Mr. Bill. That really marketed towards kids, even though it was an adult show. So if they didn't have Mr. Bill, I probably would not have even cared about Saturday Night Live, and therefore I would have never had the dream of being on it. And that's what propelled a lot of like me writing plays like through like second grade, third grade, fourth grade, all the way up till high school. I was always doing like performances at the school and writing
yeah.
sketch comedy, writing my own little comedy bits and stuff like that. I probably wouldn't have done that if I was not aware of Saturday Night Live. So basically, my job at Saturday Night Live was when I was first hired was called a writer's assistant, but I worked for Weekend Update. So I just worked for the news section, which is its own department because
Yeah.
a lot goes into just producing that news stuff because it's got to be up to date. It's news of the week. So my job really was, and this was before the internet. This was 90 and 91, 1999 and 91. And there was no internet, so I used to have to literally take a stack of newspapers, a stack of People Magazine, Newsweek Magazine, and Us or whatever, National Enquirer, and I'd have to sit there and read stuff. And dog ear and make notes. So this could be a good story. This is a funny joke. Um, and highlight stuff. And then the other writers, the main writers on Saturday morning would come and look at everything that I put together, and then they would pitch out jokes, and I wrote some jokes myself, and um, and then I'd have to go and get the photos because again, there's no internet. So
Yeah.
I'd have to actually physically go to AP, Associated Press or Getty or whatever, and literally order the photos as slides, get them, pick them up, bring them back to our studio in 30 Rock, and then we would shoot the slides to video so that they would be for the Cryon that would be back here. Um,
Mhm.
so that was a lot of my job, and in doing that, I also worked hand in hand with the art department, which did a lot of the props and stuff for the fake commercials. So that was always fun being involved in that as well.
Yeah.
So that was basically my SNL job as a writer, and I was going out and doing stand up, and that's the guys that were on the show at the time. Well, the ones that took me out were like Chris Rock, Adam Sandler, and they would take me out to open up for them in New York City where they were working on their own routines, and I would just do like 5 minutes, and then I would meet with them afterwards or meet with the guy that ran the actual comedy clubs, and they would give me notes. And one day I was in Adam and the three, it was David Spade, Adam Sandler, Chris Rock, Chris Farley, and Rob Schneider all shared one office. And it was kind of like the
Right.
the little like uh, Brat Pack war room kind of area. It was like where they stuck the kids. And so we were just like in there hanging out. And Adam was talking to me about the stand up from the night before, asking me how it went. And, just kind of like shooting notes back and forth. Not notes, but
Yeah.
just like, what were you doing? And that's when Chris kind of chimed in, Chris Farley. He's like, well, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I just go up and do a bunch of characters. And I do like commercial parodies and little like just funny radio bits and stuff. And that's when he said, I think, instead of stand up, you would fit in better at Second City. And I've heard of SCTV. I used to watch SCTV. It was a TV show with John Candy and Eugene Levy and stuff. So I was a fan of it, but I didn't know anything about Second City theater, how the theater ran. And I was not involved in theater at all coming up in high school, college, grade school, because the theater was dorky when I was growing. You know what I mean? It was like, I don't
Yeah.
want to be in a musical theater thing. I don't want to get beat up. So that's why I just did my own stand-up performances and stuff in school and at the talent shows and stuff. Um, but then so Chris Farley made a phone call and he got me hired at the Second City, and I could have stayed at Saturday Night Live and just been the writer's assistant and worked my way up. Because people I worked with, Steve Korn was actually with me, and he went on to write a lot of movies for Adam Sandler and stuff like that. So,
Mhm.
and he went on to write a long time for Saturday Night Live. So there definitely was a pathway there, but it wasn't a performer's pathway. It was pretty much impossible for me to go from a behind the scenes as a writer to then getting jumped into a cast member.
Yeah.
No one's ever really quite done that to that extent from like entry level. So I thought it was a good career jump to go, well, let me jump over to Second City. And then I went there, and on the stage with me then was like Steve Carell and Steve Colbert and Amy Sedaris and Scott Adsit, and some pretty good names came out of there when I was also
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Jeff Garland. So
Do you get nervous if you were going up to do a stand-up show more than a sketch show?
oh yeah, yeah. Because I wouldn't say it's stage fright. I'm just a shy guy.
Yeah.
If you look at my acting stuff, a lot of it is very deep characters. I'm hiding behind characters. You know what I mean? So especially in a live venue, I would feel exposed. If it was stand up, you have to sort of be yourself, and you're almost exposing yourself, talking about your wife and your kids and this and that, So, like doing the sketch shows at Second City, I was in mustaches and wigs and glasses, and that
Yeah.
same stuff is what I ended up doing in films and TV shows, So
Yeah. And of course, you had time to kind of rehearse like a sketch show as well, which probably helps. And stand up
Yeah,
is kind of because I done a little bit of stand up kind of as a joke in college. I done a few shows in Ireland, and I found it like the most high pressure situation that I've ever been in my life. I just couldn't enjoy it, but I kept wanting to do it. I'd done it for maybe 2 years. I'd done a good few
yeah,
shows, but then I was like, when I decided to stop doing it, it was kind of like a relief. And the problem I had was I couldn't remember things. I just couldn't remember. Like I'd have jokes and I'd have maybe 10 or 12 segments, but once I got up there, I just could not remember. It was a
yeah. That's
disaster.
me too. Like I said, I'm not a good reader. I'm not a good writer. I have a terrible memory. So the improv was perfect. And when people hire me for movies, I straight up tell them. I usually have a conversation with the director, going like, "Hey," and it's only really tough when it's a writer director, when the writer writes the stuff. But I'm like, I don't remember lines. I make it my own. I always say I make it my own, which is really like
Yeah,
what I know what you want me to say, and I'll kind of say it that way. But I'm going to look for it to be natural and embody the character and spit it out the way the character would say it. That sort of helps me not have to learn how to memorize lines.
hmm,
But the same thing with stand up, and it's the same thing with a sketch show. In the sketch show, you're doing it through improv and you're rehearsing and you're finding new stuff, but it's always open to go somewhere else a little bit.
yeah, yeah,
If
yeah,
it's the actual sketch, you got to kind of find you know where it ends and you know where it's going to go. Stand up is the same way. I would assume like you have a routine. It's called a routine. So just like you have a morning routine to brush your teeth, brush your hair, take a shower, wash your balls. Um, Try to see if you can lick your balls again. Nope, you're not a dog. Okay, got to do yoga again. It's going to get there someday. Anyway, but like in that stand up, the ones that really nail it are the ones that go, they've got a great memory. They could go through their routine, but they also have the opening to be aware of the audience. And if somebody yells something or somebody says something or there's somebody over here they want to point out, and they could go off on a tangent. And also just if letting them their brain go free to go off on a tangent on their own routine, and that's how they find some more jokes within that routine. And they got to remember, like, make a note of that. Um, but a routine, I've never been one that's been a routine person. I haven't showered or brushed my teeth today. What time is it? You got me at 2 p.m. I'm still in my pajamas. I'm in my pajamas, man. The reason I was late, I was like, oh crap, and I like put a hat on, and I slept in this stuff. There is no routine with Dave Sheridan. I don't follow routine. I'm not,
you
I'm
just
all
do your
about
own thing.
cheap. Yeah, exactly. So the thing is, with that said, I probably would like to go back and try to conquer stand up now that the other thing about stand up is you have to have a point of view. You have to have a point of view. You have to have, uh, I feel like as you get older, then you have a lot more knowledge of the world and connecting. And that's one thing is, early on when I was younger, I was up there doing a false representation of uh, the understanding of a group think. But I wasn't
Mhm.
like everyone else. So it'd be if I really said, "Isn't it great? Isn't it weird that you ever do this? Have you ever done that?" Like, and people are like, "No, I would. Why would you do that? That's not funny at all. This guy's weird. Get off the stage." Like. But now, like being a little bit older, I think that collectively, I understand. Now that I have some collective resources that are similar to what an audience would relate to, because it's got to be relatable.
Yeah,
When you're making people laugh, they usually laugh because yeah, that's my mom. Oh yeah, the toaster. Oh, like of course I hate red lights, whatever it is, right? You know what I mean?
Um, when I was looking at a few things, few different projects that you've worked on earlier, I was looking at most
I'm
of.
just saying, just can I just back that up?
Yep.
It's a little hard to go up and do jokes about having a 13-inch cock and how it gets in the way, because not everyone's going to get that. That's basically, so
Only the
what? Yeah.
only the lucky people will get it.
Yeah, and then you know who they are, and it's a small group, and of course with that also comes a problem of knocking the mic stand down, and so just doing or drinks on the table. So
Yeah.
it's having a cock that size has made it very hard for me to do stand up and be relatable. Yeah, I'm absolutely truthful.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I believe you. I believe you.
I'm
Um,
balancing my phone right now on my penis. I'm absolutely truthful. Absolutely.
well, when I was looking up some of your stuff earlier, and I was
Yeah.
looking at Buzzkill, for example, okay,
Yep.
and I was thinking that came out in 1996, and I was like, do you think that paved the way for a show like Jackass? While you didn't kind of
Yeah.
implement like the pain and the danger element of it, the whole hidden camera joke thing, like, do you think that that kind of paved the way for shows like that, or do
And
you think it
that's
was maybe
well.
do you think it was maybe ahead of its time in that sense?
Well, so that just to back it up, the Buzzkill came out of when I was at Second City. I was doing, like I said, doing characters on stage, and I would take those characters out and I would shoot them with a camera in reality. I would go out in reality, kind of more like a Borat, like Ali G was doing.
Yeah,
And I cut together a little pilot, and then we shopped it around with Second City, and we ended up selling it. There was several interested parties in it, but at the end of the day, I decided to go with MTV because they were so cheap that I knew if they produced something, if they said, "Oh, we're going to make 13 episodes," I knew they would air those 13 episodes because like Fox was also interested and ABC. And the problem is those company they have money where they can go, we shot 13 episodes, we canceled it after 2 episodes, you're never going to see them again. So I knew that MTV was the right place. Plus they were shifting into programming, getting away from
reality. Yeah,
music videos. And so it made sense to me that um, that's where their ship was going to be, and they don't have the material. So when they make my show, they're going to put it on. We did 2 seasons, but we were definitely a little out of control, and we kept getting a demerit, and hit on the legal department of MTV and the president of MTV, where we kept getting like double secret probation, and eventually we got canceled because we crossed the line with this Whitney Houston situation we did on the last episode.
hmm
That was the nail in the coffin. But during that time, I'm from an area of Pennsylvania, Delaware, and on Jackass, there was a guy named Bam Margera, and
yeah,
he was coming up behind me where I grew up. He was a skateboarder. I was a skateboarder, and my close friend sponsored him at age 14. And so Bam would come out and live with me or stay with me when he came out to California. Well, that's where I lived while I was shooting Buzzkill, and he was like, "Man, I love Buzzkill." He slept on my floor, and they do a thing where they make skateboard videos. Everyone gets a skateboard video. So he asked me, and my friend Rob asked me, "Will you help produce and make Bam's skateboard video?" So a lot of it was skateboarding, and I didn't shoot a lot of that stuff. They wanted me to shoot these interstitials of Bam and his friends, with shopping carts and doing prank phone
yeah.
calls and screwing around. So I shot all that stuff, and it's called Can't Kill Yourself on land speed. Later on was re-released as CKY, but if you
Yeah.
watch that first one, I'm at the end. It's my apartment, and I come out yelling at him and stuff like that. And so I shot that. Then a few years later, because that was like '96, that was right when we were doing Buzzkill. I already shot Scary Movie. It was already in the can with Doofy and stuff. So now I'm doing films, and I
Yeah.
get a call from Spike Jones, who was a friend of mine, and he's like, "We're putting together a show called Jackass for MTV, and we'd like you to be a part of it." And I was like, "I can consult, but I don't have time because I'm going to be making movies." And so I consulted him on how to set up the production to bypass the legal system that we were getting crushed on with
hmm
Buzzkill, because everything edgy we wanted to do, some of the stuff we really wanted to do, they were like, "You can't do it, you can't do it." But if you set up an outside production company and you shoot it, then they're off the hook because you already shot it. Okay, you already got release forms. All right, it worked out. That was your production that
Yeah.
was
Great
going to get
idea.
sued. And so I consulted on that, and then I basically said, I have a guy that I think would be great for the show, and I gave him the skateboard video stuff that I made, and that's how they got Bam and his whole crew. Because really, Jackass was Johnny Knoxville and Steve-O from Big Brother, and I was working with Spike Jones with a magazine called Grand Royal at the time, and doing like contributing articles and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And so that's how the band team got merged with the Jackass stuff.
Wow,
So
that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's very interesting. Interesting story.
So to
You
answer your
touched there on
question, I would say
yeah,
definitively yes, because
yes.
obviously I had a lot to do with it. Yeah.
You touched there on Scary Movie, Special Officer Doofy, and like that whole generation was massive. Like when that movie came out, do you think as the years have went on, the horror community have been more embracive of that franchise?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And does that
It,
does that stem from the convention world, which I know is massive, like, and people that are not like me and you and that don't know about this thing, it's like the biggest hidden gem ever, like, isn't it, where the fans get to meet people from their favorite movies?
yeah, I didn't know about it. Really, what happened was I did The Devil's Rejects, the Rob Zombie
Yes.
movie, which is a legit horror movie. That was, which has one of the all-time best casts. Actually, it's
I
a
had
great movie.
I had Lou Temple that was in it on the podcast there last
Okay,
year
yeah,
as well.
Lou's a really
Really
good
nice
friend of
guy.
mine. I
Yeah.
love him, and I met some great people on that movie. I didn't know anything about horror icons like Sid Haig, Bill Moseley, Michael Berryman, Kane Hodder. I didn't know any of these people because I wasn't a part of that world. And then about 2015, 10 years later, was it 2015? I'm sorry. I'm wondering when it was. Maybe it was only a 5-year reunion. It was 2000. I don't know. They called me and said, "Hey, they're doing a Devil's Rejects reunion at this horror convention." I was like, I didn't even know about horror conventions.
Hmm.
So I said, "Yeah, I'll go do that. I'd love to see those guys." Lou was like, "Dude, it's a party. It's gonna be a lot of fun." And that's when it opened my eyes, going like, "Wow, like this is like a fan base, not just for Devil's Rejects, but horror. The horror community they're very loyal and they're
Yes.
really into horror movies, and this is their sort of fraternity where they go. This is their club. This is their Club Med. These horror conventions. Once a month, they go somewhere and gather up. It's like a Juggalo gathering or whatever. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So this is their like they're like people go to comedy clubs, they like to go to horror conventions, and they like you're saying, they get a chance to interface with their actors that they've seen, and there's vendors, so they'll buy Jason masks or Michael Myers masks. And going back to your original question on Scary Movie, over time, it's interesting that this at Scary Movie was more embraced into the horror community, mainly because I was out doing it a lot. But the real key is that I'm wearing a ghost face. It's really ghost face, so it's just another outlet. It's like there's Scream with 5 different ghost face, and in Scary Movie 1, it's mainly Ghostface.
Yeah.
Because Scary Movie 2, 3, 4, whatever they made, they're not like, oh, Scary Movie 2, Scary. Nobody's signing for those. They're signing because they love Doofy is great, but it's also because I played Ghostface and did the voice and the mask and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that's what's really kept it propelled. And also Doofy became a meme. He's like a meme, this thing, and like people put like to my boss on Monday. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When my boss wants me to do something, and I don't remember what my job is. You know what I mean? So those are two kind of one-hand punches that Doofy became a meme, and it's sort of propelled it, and now it's like evergreen. Like
Yeah.
that movie's now 20 years old, and it's still being aired, and it's relevant. There's clips still being played. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't see that coming. So
The horror community, and I do have a lot of professional wrestlers on this as well on the
I
show.
saw that. I saw King Kong Bundy there and
Yeah.
Iron Sheik. Or not, was it? Yeah, Bundy, right? He was on there, right? I love him.
No, Sabu, maybe was that who you said? Maybe in the intro
Butterbean.
video. Wasn't
Was
it?
it Butterbean? Butterbean?
Yes, yes, I had Butterbean.
I love Butterbean. He's great. He's a cool guy.
Yeah, yeah, Butterbean was really cool. Actually, Johnny Knoxville is actually in the Royal Rumble this week. Would you believe in
I saw. I
WWE?
saw like when he came out and did something before that, right?
Threw a guy
I'm in
over the
the
rope.
I'm in the Guinness Book of World's Record for the largest Royal Rumble ever. It was
Yeah,
175 wrestlers, 175 wrestlers in one ring.
that
So
that book originates from this country anyway, as you can tell from the old Guinness.
yeah, that's when it was all fake. That's when the world record was easy, like Ireland world records. Like, yeah, like how many Guinnesses can you drink in under a minute? That's the first Guinness Book of World Record. This guy drank 24 Guinnesses in 1 minute. The first Guinness Book of World Record.
In terms of the last, we'll say, couple of years with the pandemic and everything like that? Has it slowed things down for you, not in the convention world, but like in the movie TV world for doing work? And what kind of projects have you got coming up?
No, I've actually been slammed the last couple. Like it's been the busiest time because I was sort of like I moved away from the larger comedies mostly because it's feast or famine, and I wasn't really getting the roles. People move into certain roles. It's like, oh, I'm not the guy anymore. It's somebody else. But so I once I discovered the horror community, and I was like, oh man, I really liked horror movies. So I was like, this is great. Let me start just focusing on horror. But the one key element to a lot of horror movies is they're low budget. They're low budget and they're small, and that's the way they like them. And that's sort of how they make their money back, is not by spending a lot of money. And so when the COVID hit, it shut down larger productions,
Yep.
but it exploded on the smaller productions, because even the larger productions, those people wanted to work. The filmmakers and the cameramen and stuff. So they all went and said, "What can we make with only a crew of 20 people? Okay, let's all move to horror. Let's all shoot something in 10 days over here. Let's all go low budget." So the low budget side blew up, and there was just too much work. It was great, and the conventions. They moved on to what's more like what we call pop-ups, where because again, the vendors that sell at these things, hey man, they need to make money. That's what they rely on. And same thing with the promoters. So they would find smaller venues and say, we're allowed to have 300 people in here.
Yep.
And so I started doing those, which has actually worked out really well, because now I was only signing at places that only had 3 actors or 4 actors. So you're like more focused. Whereas like, there's a couple conventions I'm doing in February where there's 30 actors, and some really bigger names than me. And the bigger names are going to get the first dibs. And somebody walks in with only so much money, so they'll go,
Exactly.
hey,
Yeah.
I got to get, Robert England, and I got to go get this guy, and all I have is $15 left. And then I only get the $15 for half a signature, and I give them a little piece of the thing.
Just your first name.
Yeah, no, I give them my last name. Like, well, I'm like, you know what? I'm Sheridan. You just say, yeah, I got Sheridan. Because when I grew up, that's what people called me by my last name, because there's 100 days. So
Yeah.
like on the recess ground, or the blacktop, whatever you want to call it, like basketball games, the baseball, it was all the biking. It was just Sheridan. Hey, Sheridan. You know what I mean? So I was known as Sheridan. Nobody really called me Dave. I think there are a lot of people who didn't even know what my first name was in my neighborhood, because there's just too many Davids. Now you can't even find a David. Now it's all like everybody's name sounds like they're a drink at like Starbucks. You know what I mean? What's your name? My name's Frappuccino. Caramel latte. So
Fancy names.
yeah, exactly.
Dave, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today, man. Really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, man. Thanks, and like
Yeah.
have me back again. I'd love to come back, and when I'm promoting a film or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. So like you've obviously got a few things in the pipeline. So anytime you
Yeah,
want to come on, hit me up and we'll talk, man.
yeah. And anyone watching out there, just I'm on Instagram. It's Dave Sheridan Official. Where I post where I don't post, but I have people that post. So don't send me any DMs, because it just goes to a big fat guy named Creech, who's like living in South Carolina. Oh my God! I'll tell you one. Do you hold on? Hold on. Are you into wrestling?
Oh yeah, big time.
Okay. We'll leave on this.
Yeah.
So Creech, who runs my media, and he's a producing partner. We do a podcast ourselves sometimes.
Yep.
He's really into wrestling. He works at wrestling venues. He shoots videotapes, and he's also wrestled, because he's 420 pounds. He's giant guy.
Okay.
And he was in love with this wrestler named Lexi Kaufman. Do you know who she is?
Oh, Alexa Bliss is her ring name, I think.
Yes.
The
Okay.
blonde girl. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but on my social medias, he struck up a friendship with her, but he didn't tell her it's not me. So she's like, "Oh, thanks, Dave," and he would go, hey, Lexi, like, he would say like, my producing partner Creech and his daughter are coming to Florida and they would love to, get backstage and meet you. And she goes, okay, I set them up. Thanks, Dave. You're such a great guy, Dave. But it was him. And then he'd be like, oh, they told me they had a great time. Oh, they were such a pleasure to meet, and so like the thing is this. I never asked her to like come to a wrestling thing. It was always for Creech and hey, oh, and then when she would like get hurt, like an ankle hurt, he'd be like, it would be me, he'd be like, hey, I watched you last night. I hope you're okay. And I don't even know. I'm like, did she really hurt her ankle or is the thing fake? I mean, is she going to go, why is this guy like asking me about the ankle? So like, if you read the thing, the chain, it looked like I was kind of like hitting on her and kind of like I liked her. You know what I mean? And then she went and got engaged. And the last thing on the thing is like, congratulations on your engagement from me. And then she's like, thanks, Dave. Like she got engaged to some guy, like from the Disney Channel, some singer or something like that. And I was like, oh my God. And I could just imagine at her wedding, like in Jamaica, we're getting married on the beach of wherever, right? A beautiful beach wedding. And there's probably pictures of me going like, if this guy shows up, please call security. He's a stalker. He's Dave. Or I was like, she married a guy named Ryan Cabrera is who she married, right? And I didn't know who that was because I'm not a wrestling fan. So I asked a friend, I go, holy crap, she's getting married. I hope she didn't marry a big like wrestler guy, and I'm going to be at a convention somewhere signing, and it's just going to be like boom, like stay away from Lexi. I was like, whoa, what the? And then like somebody's like, no, it's just this little singer guy. He's actually probably not a heterosexual in the first place. And I was like, okay, so I wasn't that worried, but at the same time, I don't want anyone mad at me. It was one of those like Cyrano de Bergerac kind of things or whatever like that. So it's a funny story, right? Now that you know,
yeah. And she still doesn't know.
She might know if she ever sees this.
Oh, I doubt. I somehow doubt that she will, but you never know.
Exactly, you never know.
Dave,
awesome.
thanks so much.
Thank you. Later, Maurice.
Later, man. Thanks.